Where are my carriers? It's said that this is the first thing a US president asks when trouble erupts overseas. Well, President Donald Trump says he's sending a second carrier strike group of Iran. This obviously means one carrier wasn't enough to scare the Iranians. Now, a US supercarrier displaces close to 100,000 tons. They are the largest warships ever built. They're nuclear powered, which means they have unlimited range and endurance. And they carry over 90 fighter jets and helicopters. They are escorted by destroyers armed with over 100 surface-to-air and surface-to-surface missiles. They're accompanied by nuclear-powered attack submarines. A carrier strike group is thus able to project formidable naval power across all three dimensions, all across the globe. Now, in 2003, the US deployed between 6 to 7 carrier battle groups, as it was called then, during the invasion of Iraq. But in 2026, Trump only wants to intimidate and perhaps strike at Iran's regime, not invade Iran. Now that's the reason he sent just the USS Abraham Lincoln into the Arabian Sea in late January. Now the trouble is, the US is facing a rare carrier crisis. It has too few carriers available for duty. It's facing this rare shortage of carriers for various reasons, from refits to delays. But doesn't the US have 11 supercarriers? Well, the US now currently has 10 such supercarriers, each displacing 90,000 tons. Now, the oldest carrier, the USS Nimitz, which turned 50 last year, is slated to be retired in 2026. Now, the Nimitz's replacement, the USS John F. Kennedy, is running behind schedule. It was to be delivered in 2026, but it will now be delivered only in 2027. The next Ford-class carrier, the USS Enterprise, will enter service only in 2030. That's 4 years away. Now, the US aims to maintain roughly 9 to 10 carriers in active or operational service, with 1 or 2 in major or long-term refit. So this is how the carriers stack up. The USS John S. Stennis is currently in a midlife refit and refueling of its nuclear reactors. The Ronald Reagan right here is also unavailable. It's dry docked for scheduled maintenance. The USS Carl Vinson right there is also in maintenance, as is the Dwight Eisenhower. Now, the USS Harry Truman is in port after a lengthy deployment. Now that leaves the US with the USS Gerald Ford that's currently operating off the coast of Venezuela. Now that's the Ford has in fact been out at sea for over 8 months now. That's a very, very long deployment, and it's expected to return to its home port in Norfolk in the coming weeks. So while aircraft carriers like these have nuclear reactors, they are limited by the endurance of the crew, the supplies, and the need to give them rest and recuperation. Now, the USS George Washington is currently based in Yokosuka in Japan. It can be available for deployment, but it's unlikely to be sent in, because that would leave the United States without an aircraft carrier in the Indo-Pacific to counter China. And that leaves the USS George H.W. Bush as the only active carrier that Trump can send off Iran. Now, the USS Bush is currently completing its training exercises off the coast of Virginia. That's over 8,000 nautical miles away from Iran. It could take 2 weeks to complete this exercise and another fortnight for it to sail into the Arabian Sea, which means that the earliest the George Bush can be available for active duty off Iran is early March. Of course, the carrier could cut its training schedule and move as quickly as the next 2 weeks, could be in position by then. This carrier crisis is a rare time in the US Navy's history, where it's had too few carriers to deploy for active service across the world. But it has other larger implications for Washington, D.C.'s strategy of carrier strike group diplomacy. That's the 21st century version of gunboat diplomacy. If the US doesn't have enough carriers to spare for a crisis in Iran, will it have enough to deter China from invading Taiwan? Now, these are tough questions the US Navy will be asking themselves in the months and years ahead.